The season finale of Creature Commandos has come and gone, and it gave us a lot to talk about. Welcome to Haynes for Heroes, I'm Alex Haynes, and if it's a movie or TV show about superheroes, you know I'm all over it. And I'm all over the season finale breakdown, so let's just jump right into it. So in the season finale, we learn more about Nina's backstory, and it turns out she was actually a regular human girl, except when she was born, her lungs were on the outside of her body. Her father, being a scientist, creates a bulky device that goes around Nina's body that's able to help her breathe, but it's really big and heavy and it causes her a lot of discomfort. And Nina's mother, who feels guilty over not pulling the plug on Nina when she was born, decides to just pack up and leave them. Not a helpful thing to do to your child. Nina's father, however, remains loyal to her and gives her all the love and care that she deserves. But as Nina continues to grow, it becomes more and more uncomfortable for her to have that big bulky device around her. So her father decides to genetically modify Nina to make it easier for her to breathe. But just like everything that goes on in a superhero universe, the experiment goes wrong. And instead of making it so Nina can breathe easier, her father accidentally turns her into a fish person. So now Nina needs to constantly be in water in order to survive. But after years of facing extreme discrimination from her human peers, Nina decides to run away from home and live out in the wild. But it was only a matter of time before someone sees Nina out in public, and they call the authorities, who quickly come out to try to capture her. And while Nina was being captured, her father tries to rescue her, but he's shot and killed by police. The interesting thing about Nina for me is that she's the only character within the Creature Commandos that literally did nothing but still got arrested. She wasn't playing with children, she didn't attack anybody, she wasn't a mob boss, like she literally was just chilling in the middle of the forest and they still took her. Because she looks like a fish, she's not accepted by society, but also she's not accepted amongst the Creature Commandos because unlike them, she doesn't have a violent bone in her body. So Nina is an outcast everywhere she goes. And that's what makes what happens later on in the episode even more just like heartbreaking, like, oh no, Nina! But back to present day, we have the Commandos trying to infiltrate the castle so they can assassinate the princess. And while they're scouring through the security feeds, they find a clip of the princess having a meeting with another monster. More on that later. But as they're doing this, Frankenstein appears to try to warn the bride to not kill the princess, but instead the bride shoots him repeatedly, which honestly, good for her, because the dude was a total creep. And we already know he's not dead, but it's nice to see him get messed up. After this, the Commandos were able to successfully infiltrate the castle, and they find the princess swimming in her private pool. But unfortunately, she's surrounded by guards, and the only one of the Commandos that can get to her is Nina. The Commandos are trying to convince Nina to go murder the princess, but she's having none of it. She's never killed anyone before. Remember, she's not like the other Commandos. She's the outcast. But the bride's able to pull Nina aside and tell her that she is on a team full of freaks, and Nina is the biggest freak of them all, giving Nina that sense of belonging that she wanted her whole life. Now, some would say that the bride is taking advantage of Nina's vulnerabilities and kind of forcing her to do something she truly doesn't want to do, but I don't think that's the case. The bride genuinely cares about Nina and sees her not just as part of a team, but as her friend, and this is proven just a little bit later. As Nina is swimming under the water, knife in hand, ready to kill the princess, the weasel jumps into the water, screaming and yelling, trying to warn the princess about the incoming danger, mainly because the princess reminded him of the little girl that he failed to save in his past. And because of the weasel, the princess is able to see Nina and they get in a fight underwater, which ends with the princess stabbing Nina to death. And it's scary because as the princess is killing Nina, she has this evil, determined look in her eye, which hints that she really is the way that Cersei's prophecy says she is. And this also shows how much the bride cares about Nina, because the bride runs out into the water and is just stunned with grief. And to make matters worse, the bride can't even get immediate revenge on the princess because Amanda Waller calls in and calls off the assassination. But this does lead to this really cool murder mystery-esque revelation from the bride when she and the princess meet in her office. The bride calls out the princess for actually being evil and planning on starting World War III. Because if you remember earlier, they saw a clip of the princess meeting with a monster. Well, that monster turned out to be Clayface. See, at first when the princess got Rick Flag to fall in love with her, she was hoping that Rick Flag would kill Cersei, but instead instead he arrested her. So then the princess had to come up with a plan B, so she hired Clayface in order to impersonate that professor as a way to try to discredit Cersei's prophecy. There were also other hints throughout the season that showed the princess's cruel intentions, like in her office where there's a hologram of Earth with different cities highlighted, most likely for an attack, or how her people live in extreme poverty while she lives in this lavish futuristic castle. But it was so cool how the bride was able to put all of that together, and before the princess can pull out her gun, the bride just pops her right in the head. It was just, yes, queen, you got her. And another thing I love about this moment, and others throughout the season, is how it challenges what it means to be a monster. The Creature Commandos are monsters. They're not human, they look scary, they have dangerous abilities, but the ones who do the most horrific acts in this series are the humans. The humans are the real monsters. You have the crime boss that murdered Dr. Phosphorus's family. You have the cops that caused those little girls to be killed and Weasel was framed for it. You have Amanda Waller forcing the Commandos to do her bidding. And then finally you have the princess who's trying to start World War III. Who are the real monsters here? But I love that this show does that. Just because someone looks different doesn't make them evil, and just because someone looks like a beautiful Disney princess doesn't mean that they aren't a sick son of a biscuit. It's a very simple message, but still effective. But after the bride saves the world from the evil princess, that's a hilarious sentence, Amanda Waller rewards the Commandos with their own private quarters. And along with that, we get new Commando members. Of course, we're getting the bride, Dr. Phosphorus, and the Weasel back, but we're also getting new additions like Nosferatu, that vampire woman that was bullying Nina earlier in the season, Khalees, who honestly I don't know much about him, but I do know that he's a mummy and I think mummies are cool, so I'm excited to see more of him. An upgraded GI robot, like he looks freaking huge and awesome, and hopefully they're keeping that anti-Nazi feature of his, because that was honestly my favorite thing about him. And finally we get King Shark from the Suicide Squad movie. He's back, yay! He's no longer played by Sylvester Stallone though, instead he's voiced by Diedrich Bader, but still, I'm happy. I love King Shark. But what did you think of the season finale of Creature Commandos? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, go ahead and scare the like button and then click on the boxes right here, and I'll see you in a bit.